a sheepet swelled with royal kin, that broke the court in wicked din. And since the queen had made no heir, the tale of King Blanchard.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. Netflix just released this Witcher Season 4 teaser and announced that they were ending The Witcher. Like, they announced it was basically canceled in the same breath that they released this Season 4 teaser, confirming a lot of our theories when Henry Cavill announced that he had quit The Witcher a couple years ago. Most of us felt like it wasn't long for this world, so we'll break it all down. And what's going on with Liam Hemsworth, who is replacing Henry Cavill as Geralt. There are a couple other new characters that you see sitting around the table here as they get ready for Episode 1, so I'll explain who they are too. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. Even though Henry Cavill does kind of seem like he's got the short end of the stick here, like people have been doing him dirty at Netflix, at DC, there's still a bunch of big stuff that he's working on right now too, like the Warhammer series. I'll talk about that during the video too. If you look around the table here, this is Lawrence Fishburne. He's playing Regis, the higher vampire. Danny Woodburn here is playing Zoltan, who's also connected to Regis, and a bunch of returning characters from previous seasons like Ciri, Amir, Vilgefortz, Yennefer, Triss, obviously. Shardo Copley is also playing Bonhart, and James Purefoy is playing Skellen, but they're not here, making it sound like they don't appear in Episode 1. But the whole thing here is that Netflix also confirmed that they were ending the series with the rest of the plot from the last 3 Witcher books, Baptism of Fire, The Tower of the Swallow, and Lady of the Lake, in the next 2 seasons, basically. Like, that's it. Andrzej Sapkowski is writing a new Witcher book, but as far as I know, they're not using any of that plot on the show, because he's still in the middle of writing that right now. And they're already racing through 3 books worth of material in the last 2 seasons. Their plan right now is to do Season 4, Season 5 back-to-back at warp speed, and that's the end of it. Like, boom, that's all she wrote. Now, here's the thing. They announced all this like this was always their plan, like there were never any hiccups anywhere in this. The official statement from the showrunner read, "It is with huge pride that we begin shooting our penultimate season of The Witcher with a stellar cast, including some exciting new additions led by Liam Hemsworth. We're thrilled to be able to bring Andrzej Sapkowski's book to an epic and satisfying conclusion. It wouldn't be our show if we didn't push our family of characters to their absolute limit. Stay tuned with how the story ends." Here's the thing though, we know this is a big change in their plans because several years ago when they started The Witcher with Henry Cavill, the showrunner said she had at least 7 seasons worth of material planned. Cut to a few years ago though, Henry Cavill announces he's quit the show, he's leaving. Netflix quickly then says Liam Hemsworth is replacing him as Geralt. Apparently the showrunner said that Liam Hemsworth tested against Henry Cavill for Geralt during The Witcher Season 1, but lost out to Henry Cavill when Henry Cavill joined the project. So it's like when Henry Cavill left, they went to their Witcher number 2, like, oh, you were the backup choice initially, so we're just going back to you. But at the time when they announced that Liam Hemsworth would replace Henry Cavill, most of us saw the writing on the wall. Liam Hemsworth is a total dude, he's great, but he's a huge downgrade from Henry Cavill. Netflix also probably saw the writing on the wall. Way fewer people would be watching The Witcher Season 4, any other further seasons they did beyond that. It's super expensive show, and even when Henry Cavill was still Geralt, the viewership by Season 3 had made it harder to justify Netflix continuing to make it. If you look at the viewership from The Witcher Season 1 to Season 3, like there was a big drop-off by the end of Season 3. So the show was already kind of hanging by a thread. Henry Cavill actually leaving the show then, and a lot more viewers leaving with him, is probably why Netflix cut those extra 2 seasons and they're making them wrap up the last 3 books in just 2 seasons. Which is basically like Game of Thrones Season 8 levels of speed running your book plot. Everybody remembers how that went down. It did not end well. In reality, we probably shouldn't be super surprised by any of this. They've been changing the book plot since Season 1. Even if they had done 7 full seasons of like 10 episodes per season, they still wouldn't have been able to do everything from the books. And if you haven't read the Witcher books, they're written very differently from like Game of Thrones or The Lord of the Rings or other high fantasy novels. The Witcher books jump around in time way more, and at least for the first part of the book story, they mostly follow just Geralt's perspective and just him thinking about other characters until Ciri becomes a big part of the plot. Then the book follows the 2 of them almost exclusively. What the show did from Season 1 is rearranging a lot of the early short stories into a more traditional TV show narrative, episode to episode, season to season, like you would see on a regular TV network, and turn the story into more of an ensemble perspective with it following many different characters' perspectives, like you get way more inside Yennefer's head, Vilgefortz, Emperor Amir's head, other characters, way more than the book does during those specific parts of the story. Originally, most people came to the show being fans of the video games, but the video games actually became much more popular than the original books. So most people tuned into the show because they were excited about Henry Cavill playing this character, thinking that it would be more like the way the games play out. Like you'd follow him episode to episode way more than they actually did on the actual show. A lot of people also just excited to see Henry Cavill do a really big project after being done so dirty by DC with the Justice League debacle, all the Superman stuff. Remember, The Witcher started long before The Rock ever did his Black Adam magic, bringing him back as Superman in that post-credit scene, and long before Warner Brothers' regime change with all their corporate buyout nonsense. There's an entire book that you could write about the saga of Henry Cavill with Warner Brothers and DC and all of the back and forth, all the whiplash we get with him becoming Superman again, but then not Superman again. If you don't remember, him coming back as Superman in the Black Adam post-credit scene was part of the regime change, and them basically giving him new contract to come back as Superman in Man of Steel 2, new Justice League movies, come back as Superman in a much bigger way. But then right after that happened, right after Black Adam came out, they hired James Gunn. He elected to reboot all the DC movies, recast everyone, and suddenly Henry Cavill was out as Superman again. So much happened in the last couple of years, it was crazy. If you look at the dates when Henry Cavill actually quit The Witcher, I think what happened is that at the time, the filming schedule had started to conflict with the movie offers he started to get after the Justice League debacle had settled down. He started to do way more movies just in general, and there was this whole push for him to become the next James Bond for a while. That's still kind of going on right now, but I do not think that he's going to be the next James Bond. All the new DC Superman plans he had started to conflict a little bit with The Witcher's filming schedule, and there were a lot of reports about him having conflicting ideas about how to adapt Geralt versus the writers on the show. If you remember, Beau DeMayo, who actually is the showrunner on X-Men 97, fantastic series, really loving what they're doing on X-Men 97 right now. Beau DeMayo was actually the writer on The Witcher who also criticized some of the writing of that show and the way they were changing Geralt and the other characters from the books. Very weird coincidence that it just happened to be him. But Henry Cavill had always wanted a more book-accurate Geralt, and the show just was not writing him that way. He wasn't a producer on the show either, meaning that he didn't have a lot of control over the actual direction of the show. So I think everyone's just generally in agreement that he saw all these things coming at him from different angles as signs that he needed to leave the show. Like he's got way too many even bigger things in the hopper ready to go. The Witcher's starting to get in the way of that, and also he's not a super big fan of the way they're adapting the show. So he leaves, but then DC Warner Brothers hired James Gunn, recast all the Justice League actors, Henry Cavill suddenly out as the main Superman, all those DC plans gone away in an instant. But around that same time that was all happening, he announced his new Warhammer series and Warhammer movies that he was working on at Amazon, like completely different streamer. He's also been doing a ton of other just regular non-IP movies just in general, so just generally things are looking pretty good for Henry Cavill. As dirty as it seems like he was done by DC, Netflix, he'll come out of this fine. It sounds like based on the way things are going, his Warhammer series probably isn't going to premiere till at least 2026. It could be later than that, just depending on when they eventually start filming. I think the general idea is that if the first Warhammer series does well, they'll do Warhammer movies also set in that universe. It'll be an interconnected universe of story, basically. I'll do more Warhammer videos when they make more announcements about who he's playing. I did a couple trailer videos for the early teasers he released. I'll link them at the end of this and down in the description below. He gave some clues as to who he might be playing. But as for The Witcher Season 4, they haven't explained how they're going to introduce Liam Hemsworth as the replacement Geralt, but they made Doctor Who references when talking about him, the way that they switch actors through the years, Doctor to Doctor, the regenerations. There are a lot of twisty, magic-based ways they can explain Geralt shows up looking completely different, sounding completely different. But without any actual footage, right now I'm kind of expecting them to pull an Iron Man 2 Rhodey kind of thing with a twist. They'll have some brief line of dialogue, then never reference the recasting ever again. Now in present day, most people when they think of Rhodey, they only think of Don Cheadle, like they barely remember Terrence Howard, but there is no way Liam Hemsworth can overshadow Henry Cavill. If you were one of the people who really wanted to see the conclusion of the Witcher story, you will get a version of that. The biggest new characters they've added for Season 4 here, Lawrence Fishburne's Regis is a powerful higher vampire. He's over 400 years old when he meets Geralt with a company of dwarves led by Zoltan, who's played by this actor here. So because they're doing an Episode 1 read-through here, they might actually just show them meeting for the first time in Episode 1 in a flashback. Regis eventually winds up helping Geralt rescue Ciri deal with Vilgefortz, so he becomes a big ally to Geralt. And a lot of the other newer characters in this read-through here are from the Rats group that Ciri joined at the end of Season 3, so there'll be a lot of her with the Rats at the beginning of Season 4. There was actually supposed to be a spin-off TV show Netflix was doing about the rats like they did with Witcher Blood Origin. I don't know if that's still happening or if they canceled it too, if they just canceled the Witcher series. Like, we're going to wrap it up as quickly as possible and boom, that's it. What they'll probably do during Season 4 and Season 5 is they'll have her eventually run into Avallac'h from Blood Origin, the time-traveling elf, paying off the post-credit scene from that when he was watching Ciri during the events of The Witcher Season 1. I don't know if they're going to save Vilgefort's ending for Season 5. His big final battle with Geralt isn't until the last Witcher book, Lady of the Lake, which makes sense. Season 5 will also have to end with Ciri facing the Wild Hunt with Geralt, also facing the White Frost, which is the show adapting some of the stuff from the games. If you haven't read the books, the game story actually picks up after the ending of the book story. In fact, they had to retcon some of the end of the books in order to start the games. But a while ago, the showrunner did say that they would be adapting stuff from the games and from the books, so no surprise there. And a lot of the stuff they are adapting from the games, particularly the White Frost, they've also changed in a big way. During the games, the White Frost is meant to be like the ultimate main villain that Ciri has to face, like the whole reason why her Elder Blood program the elves originally created exists. They implied that it's more of like this great ice age that's going to come and destroy the entire planet, and they wanted to create a being that was powerful enough to stop that from happening. But on the show, they made it seem like the White Frost is an actual person and heavily implied that it's actually Falka, who is from the Witcher books. She was an elf that was burned at the stake in the distant past. So it kind of makes it seem like the TV show is turning the overall story of The Witcher into like a glorified revenge story, like Falka, burned at the stake, is coming back to enact her revenge on the world. The other big change they made to the Wild Hunt, too, from the games, they made the Wild Hunt seem like they're more servants of Falka, White Frost now. But everyone post all your reactions in the comments below. I know everybody's still really bummed out that Henry Cavill left the show. Like, why do I want to watch the show now without Henry Cavill? What I'll probably do is at least like one big wrap-up video for Season 4 and for Season 5 when they do eventually come out. And like I said, Henry Cavill will probably continue to tease his Warhammer series, but I'm not expecting to hear a bunch about that till like either later this year or next year. There's a bunch of big stuff coming up. I just did a bunch of Fallout videos. Click here for my Fallout Season 2 and Season 1 ending video, and click here for that Henry Cavill Warhammer trailer. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.